Seen him,
I
and
hate him.
he has got such a huge voice, that young fella. The
and he
front man.
borrowed it from somebody I know very well.
These bands annoy Robert Plant, and I'm not scared to admit that I have seen him. And I despise him because, well, he has such an enormous voice that he borrowed at a young age. From someone I know well, the legend of Led Zeppelin has never been one to remain silent, but a few of his targets have abandoned their fans entirely. Startled icons of rock tend to stick together. It's not Plant who has torn apart some of the biggest musicians. Say they're boring, overvalued, and even they are Led Zeppelin, which is embarrassing. Indeed, the child appears to be abruptly left. A sort of gorgeous little singer poses a threat to everyone. Imitations attempting to pilfer Zeppelin's sound to frontmen that he finds excruciating. So which 5 bands have pretentious earned his utter disdain? Let's look for in this video, the individuals who have been among the rock bands with the longest history of all time, playing for many years and going on tour despite the setback of important members, but not everyone notices seeing this as a good thing. Famous Led Robert Plant, the frontman of Zeppelin, once showed dissatisfaction with the Who's perseverance, especially following the death of Keith Moon. Their original drummer Moon is renowned for his erratic and chaotic drumming technique, and life-size tragically died in 1978 as a result of taking too many drugs designed to address his alcohol withdrawal. His passing dealt a terrible blow to the. However, rather than disbanding, they decided to continue with Kenny, a new drummer Jones, who was once from the Little Faces and Faces, but Jones was a capable musician who is more methodical and controlled style of play. He didn't have the untamed, insane energy that had characterized Moon's involvement with the Plant kit. This choice to go on without Moon indicated a notable drop into the essence of the band and sincerity. Plant has been candid in her remarks regarding his eventual opinions on the Who's years, praising their performances as dull and uninspired. In a Rolling Stone interview, he said, "I observed the Who stumbling around the American stadiums, and I thought it was so drab, evident, and depressing that they continued without Keith. Moon was constantly a mystery to me." He gave Kenny a nod Jones' ability, but noted that his exact and regulated drumming technique stood in sharp contrast to the explosive, unpredictable playing. The thrill was disappeared, and the Who wasn't that noteworthy. No longer support the choice of Plant. The Who to proceed in spite of Moon's death was he declined to make the error with Led Zeppelin at the time of John Bonham's in 1980. The powerful drummer passed away following an event involving booze. Plant and the band's remaining members made the challenging decision to dissolve instead of trying to take his place. The drumming of Bonham was a crucial component of Zeppelin's music, and Plant sensed without him, it would have been a disrespect to their legacy. But those who are still alive have occasionally, they get together for special. Led Zeppelin's performances never really changed, as contrast to the Who persisted touring and putting out new music for a long time following their prime years. It's noteworthy to note that the members have occasionally mirrored Plant's opinions on both Pete Townsend, guitarist, and vocalist. According to Roger Daltrey, carrying following Moon's passing was challenging, and in hindsight, it might not have been the appropriate decision. The band broke up in 1982. Implied that they were doubtful as well regarding their future without the Moon, but after a few years, they got back together and have continued to operate since the loss of foundation John Entwistle in 2002. Furthermore, many supporters put the band's tenacity to the test, and detractors believed that this would be the last nail in the coffin of the Who, but they pushed on Townsend and Daltrey. The original members have persisted in act in the name of the Who in spite of a lot of lineup adjustments, and their growing older. To some people's perseverance is evidence of their passion for music, their commitment to their followers. To others, Plant is one example of a shadow, a legacy of the band's past glory that would have been better kept safe if they had decided to leave when the original lineup had vanished. Stadiums are still packed with the Who, and provide high performances. For Plant's viewpoint draws attention to a larger discussion. Legendary bands should be a part of rock music. Keep going even when important members are gone, or should they keep their legacy by understanding when to give up? There is no conclusive response because each the band's circumstance is distinct, although for Robert Plant's choice was obvious. Bonham was Zeppelin's final member, and that was the best option for them. Headed the relationship between Zeppelin Robert Plant. Led Zeppelin is intricate and intensely conflicted at times, yet many fans consider Zeppelin to be among the best historical rock bands. And Plant himself has been unexpectedly critical of his previous band and its heritage. In contrast to many rock legends who take pleasure in the fondness of their former splendor, Plant frequently distances oneself from the music of Led Zeppelin, occasionally even showing contempt for specific elements of it. In an unexpected and brutally truthful declaration at one point, Plant said, "I can't blame someone who despises Led Zeppelin. If you utterly despise the Stairway to Heaven, no one can hold you accountable for that, as it was so arrogant." Such self-criticism is uncommon among famous rock stars, yet it echoes Plant's propensity to examine his previous work closely instead of reveling in its accomplishments, unlike he criticized The Who for carrying on without important participants. His critiques of Zeppelin is more intimate than he appear to be annoyed by the band's ongoing influence rather than his personal part in it, particularly his exuberant, high-pitched, the larger-than-life image and voice which characterized him as Zeppelin's frontman. Plant has said on numerous occasions that he cringes at some of Zeppelin's tunes when he overhears them, thinking the voices were very dramatic or excessive. He has been really vocal in this song. Stairway to Heaven is something that people dislike. Perhaps the most well-known song in Zeppelin's discography and among the most famous songs in the history of rock, but fans consider it a work of art when Plant views it is an extravagant epic. The result of time hasn't held up well, and his disengagement from the song is so obvious, powerful, that he has frequently declined to execute it during his own career in spite of countless requests from admirers. But Plant's conflicted emotions around Led Zeppelin beyond simple artistic critique in his eyes. In addition to Zeppelin, some of the most he has had difficult times in his life. Claimed that Led Zeppelin was in his thoughts. Really passed away in 1977, many years before that year, the band formally disbanded. Plant has an unfathomable personal tragedy. Lost his 5-year-old kid to death. Carac's unexpected illness and the tragedy. Plant was emotionally distraught. Destroyed when Zeppelin was at the height of their profession, but for Plant achievement was meaningless in the face of such intense sorrow over the loss of his son was only one of the gloomy recollections. Can create a bittersweet legacy for Zeppelin. For him, the latter years of the band were characterized by excessive addiction and suicide. His closest friend, and John Bonham, a drummer in the band, was descending more into alcoholism when the band's reputation as a legend was accompanied by a growingly disorderly way of life during the late 1970s. The demands being in Zeppelin had become into Plant found the music that used to felt thrilling, but I was carrying too much now. Emotional impact, as well as the group that had once his whole world, turned into something he desired to abandon when in 1980, Bonham sadly passed away. Was the last blow, in contrast to the who continued without their initial. Led Zeppelin's drummer decided to terminate their travel at that moment, and the Plant was crucial in that choice to decline to even think of taking Bonham's place. As a closed chapter, Zeppelin has devoted the remainder of his professional life to create a new, distinct musical identity. Plant emerged today from the shadow of his history. Keeps developing as an artist, investigating world music, folk, blues, and not depending on Zeppelin nostalgia. His former band is still among the Plant is the most adored rock in history. He has come to terms with the reality that the golden-haired man is no longer the 1970s rock god who welcomes change, reimagining and advancing something which distinguishes him from many of his peers that continue to hold on to their fame. Plant Zeppelin's days were it brought him both a blessing and a curse. Everything, but it also removed a lot of, and although admirers will always treasure the Led Zeppelin, Plant's own legacy has Greta Van Fleet decided to let things rest. Robert Plant isn't the type to soften his views, particularly when it comes to Greta Van Fleet, a band frequently referred to as Led's contemporary incarnation. Zeppelin has made remarks that are both cutting and flattering in reverse. While many fans of classic rock rejoice Greta Van Fleet's voice sounds welcoming, Zeppelin's distinctive style. Plant is being revived. Views them somewhat differently. He recognizes their ability but also appears to not struck by their uniqueness, especially in the context of leadership. The vocal performance of singer Josh Kiszka in Plant expressed his emotions in the interview about the youthful rockers are clearly stating, "Detroit has a band named Led Zeppelin is Greta Van Fleet. I loathe him while he's a gorgeous little singer." At first glance, the statement may appear harsh. Look, it was probably intended in a more sarcastic or taunting way, but without question, Plant discovers the Zeppelin-inspired music by the band too familiar to be consoling. He continued to remark, "He got his voice from someone else. I am well aware, but what are you doing to do? At least he has some style." Since he claimed that his entire style was based on the criticism of Aerosmith, Plant appears to concentrate mostly on Kiszka's voice, which seemed quite similar to his own when Zeppelin was at its best. Kiszka's wails with high pitches and dramatic. The wording is definitely reminiscent of Plant's distinctive look, and it's simple to see why a lot of people first believed Greta Van Fleet was a tribute of sorts. But some may see this as a Plant seems to consider this as a flattering tribute. It is really a simple imitation. Absent the unpredictability of the raw energy Greta Van, what made Zeppelin so unique? The Fleet, which was established in 2012, rapidly acquired renown for their bluesy rock style. And the artistic illustration of classic rock comparisons to Led Zeppelin are inescapable. Highway Tune. Their breakthrough hit included soaring guitar chords and gritty voice acting that may have been thought to be a long-lost Zeppelin song. Both fans and detractors have argued, is Greta Van Fleet a breath of fresh air or fresh air in an area dominated by rocks, by hip-hop and mainstream music, or just a band excessively depending on the past without contributing something fresh to the discussion? While the band has received accolades from numerous rock legends for preserving the essence of vintage rock, Plant's remarks imply that he's alive. Not totally in agreement with the notion of he's devoted a lot of his time to Zeppelin 2.0. Avoiding nostalgia after Zeppelin's career and making a concerted effort to stand out himself from the past, investigating people, world and blues music instead of clinging to the sound of heavy rock that made him well known. Perhaps he considers Greta Van Fleet to be a band trapped in recycled sound from a temporal warp that despite this, he has long ago outgrown. Greta Van Fleet's conflicted sentiments toward Plant stays true to their Zeppelin-like attributes, despite their attempts to improve their tone and create in response to their own identity. Kiszka to analogies by stating that although one influence is Led Zeppelin, he's not attempting to imitate anyone. Accepted Plant's remarks, but was unfazed, considering them more as an recognition as opposed to a direct. Jim Morrison dismisses The Doors. Is generally considered to be among rock's greatest mysterious and captivating frontmen. Plant expressed doubts regarding Morrison's charisma on stage and the group's general creative methodology. He has charged The Doors of overindulgence in oneself and arrogant, especially when it visited Morrison's theater performances and lyrical poetry that are not like Led Zeppelin, whose songs were infused with The Doors, blues, hard rock, and mysticism. Has a reputation for having trippy sounds, poetic and gloomy lyrics, as well as Morrison's defiant, sullen appearance. While many critics and admirers have lauded Morrison's profoundly lyrical lyrics and untamed, Plant's erratic stage presence considered a large portion of it to be fake and believed that Morrison's rock was overstated and role character was more of a performance than an authentic manifestation of his identity. Morrison's problem with Plant appeared to be based on how the frontman of The Doors carried himself when he was on stage. Pointed out that Morrison's striking delivery and demeanor seemed a bit contrived rather than natural, resulting in his performances felt too dramatic rather than unfiltered. An actual Morrison's recitation habit, extended abstract poem performed live and going through extended psychedelic jams frequently extends songs too far. Plant used lengths as an example of the band's pleasure in themselves. In contrast, the performances of Led Zeppelin, despite being rigorous and experimental, centered mostly on musical ability instead of being philosophical or poetic. Zeppelin frequently participated in speeches and prolonged improvisation with an instrument. Plant's personal performance on stage was more vibrant and innate without the existential nuances that clarified the identity Morrison created for Plant. Rock and roll was all about vigor, emotion, and spontaneity, as opposed to Morrison's approach felt artificial and excessive at times. Dramatic, there was additionally a clear disparity between Plant and Morrison's. Approached their frontman positions. Frequently, Morrison portrayed himself as a rock poet who were influenced by great writers like Arthur Rimbaud, William Blake, and Friedrich Nietzsche. Wrote weighty lyrics. Includes existential themes, symbolism, and bizarre visuals that complemented his. In contrast, the larger-than-life mystique. The lyrical influences of Plant were more toward blues, mythology, and folklore customs, and his performances were more about engagement and vocal strength with the audience instead of poetry recitations. Outside of Morrison's platform persona, Plant was also hesitant regarding the sound of The Door itself. As he acknowledged the band's ability, he appeared to discover their songwriting and sound to be conceited and frequently roam as well deep into the experimental realm without preserving the unadulterated motivation that he appreciated rock music. Although this isn't to claim that Plant wasn't grateful for depth or complexity in the music. Led to Zeppelin's discography is filled with complex songs with profound poetic ideas, but he favored a more organic emotional-led strategy as opposed to something that seemed excessively thought-provoking. In spite of his criticisms, the enduring impact is undeniable. That Jim Morrison and the Doors were wearing Morrison's rock history is still among the most revered characters in rock and roll, and the music from The Door keeps playing. Impact upcoming generations of artists. But Plant's criticism presents a fascinating observation regarding the fine line between creative expression and self-gratification in rock music. A wider contrast is also reflected in the comments between two distinct rock schools. Performance: one that welcomes